Hey everybody, thanks for coming tonight. My name is Ian Kane. I'm the membership representative for the Montana Stock Growers Association. We sure appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to be here today. Just want to kick off the meeting, let you know we are live streaming this for folks who could not make it here in person, and so it is being recorded online. Just want you to be aware of that. And then I want to introduce the rest of the MSGA folks that are here, and also thank Sidney Livestock and the Larsons for allowing us to host this meeting here. So as far as staff is concerned, Kenny Reese, Marketing and Comms Director, and then Ellie Brighton is our Government Affairs Specialist. So that's our staff. And then we have your fearless leader, Keith Dennison, here from Sidney, Montana, as well as Monty Lesh, who will be helping me kind of MC and lead the discussion, and Ty Jones from Miles City as well is here. And I believe we have a representative from our elected officials. If you would like to introduce yourself, feel free to do so.
Hi, I'm Charlie Harding. I'm Senator Dane Eastern Montana.
And we sure appreciate you being here and taking the good word of Montana's producers back to our officials. So I just kind of want to start things off by just giving you background on what the Producer Profitability Initiative is, for those of you who may not have really heard all about the things that are going on. But this really started back in December or last fall, really, among conversations of Montana Stock Growers members about how do we incentivize the next generation to come back to land and the livestock and keep this industry going? How do we keep Montana's ag land in production? We all know that demographics and ownership is changing around the state, and so how do we incentivize folks to continue on with their operations and just really incentivize folks to continue in this industry that we love? And so at our December meeting, we had some conversations and policies that were put in place to get this Producer Profitability Initiative in order to get feedback.
Just get a little bit closer, sorry.
Anyway, so we are about halfway through our meeting schedule so far, and we'll be hosting 2 more in Glendive and Miles City next week. But we've had really good feedback so far, and we're looking forward to the conversation tonight. But this is not we want to kind of set aside some of those issues that we maybe can't agree on, and want to really focus in on some of the issues that we can find consensus and really have discussions on what is some of these areas, the 2-3 things that are going to impact the most folks, and that we can come with a unified voice in the industry to our elected officials and say, hey, this is something that we've heard from producers around the state of Montana, and we really think this can make a huge difference for our Montana ranch families. And I mean, this is really supposed to encompass all segments of the livestock industry. So whether that's if you're a farmer feeder, if you're a cow calf, seed stock, backgrounder, I mean, it's really the whole 9 yards. It's not just one sector of the industry. And tonight's meeting will be broken into 3 different segments. The first thing we'll kind of start out with is this live survey. So if you want to go ahead and pull out your cell phones and look on that back, the first page of that handout that you received. And if you didn't get a handout, we can make sure to get you one. But there's a QR code there, and you can just scan that QR code, and that'll take you to the Minty website. And that's what will help. You just put in that code that's on the TV screens right there. It's 32474101. And we'll do some live polling. That way you can kind of see some of the thoughts of your peers in the crowd tonight. We'll open it up to a live discussion on our 5 areas of focus, where you can give your thoughts on those different areas, whether that's some tax policies, LRP, labor shortages and labor challenges that you may be experiencing, how to incentivize the next generation, and we'll have some time to go over all those different topics, and then we'll have some polling again at the end. So you should be seeing the first question on the screen on your phone there. When you think about producer profitability, what three words come to mind? And if any of you are having trouble getting to that point, feel free to let us know. We'll be happy to assist you in getting to that. Is everybody able to get to that? We having any trouble?
No.
So some of the things that have been said so far is markets, cash flow, money, production, complicated, consistent, feed, efficiency. And for those of you who may not be familiar with how a word cloud works, the words that are in the center there that get bigger, those are ones that have been answered more than others. And so you can kind of see based on the size of those words, which responses are more common than some of the others. So looks like some of the most common answers we have so far is cash flow, markets, efficiency, feed, and profit. Give 10, 15 more seconds for anybody else that needs to get some questions in. So the next question is, in 20 words or less, share with us the biggest challenges you face in your operations, growth, and success. I do want to mention before I forget, if you had not had a chance to sign in, we are going to raffle off that vaccine cooler in the lobby at the end of the evening. So be sure to make sure to sign in before then, and that way you'll be entered to win. And we sure do appreciate Western Ranch Supply and Ringer Ingelheimer for helping us with donating those coolers for these listening sessions. So it looks like the labor is our first response. Access to affordable pasture, land prices, labor and lending challenges. Another response is marketing your product would be one of the major challenges. Profitability due to high interest in land prices and operating costs in general versus markets. Being able to improve and keep moving forward while not falling behind financially. Having enough help. Give 10, 15 more seconds for anybody to get final thoughts on that question. So our third question of the evening is, in the last 10 years, what tools or programs have been the most beneficial to your operations profitability? I did want to say that we sure appreciate you helping with this survey, just because all this data, in addition to the conversations that we've had at these listening sessions, it's really helpful to us to be able to analyze the conversations, across Montana, depending on regions, and seeing what's affecting everybody versus, what's, different regions or, maybe more acute issues that they're facing. So we sure do appreciate your help with that. So some of our responses so far is USDA programs and beef checkoff, digital data for evaluation, pasture quality insurance, marketing options, NRCS and EQIP programs, improved genetics and better marketing, extension education, low interest estate tax. Good job, Marley. Program calves and video sales, improved information on feed crop inputs, etc., that help us make better cattle and crops. Give 15, 20 more seconds for any final thoughts there on that question. We got two more, and then we'll kind of open up for just general discussion on our different topic areas. So the next one is, what do you believe will be the biggest challenge the livestock industry will face in the next 20 years? So the responses we're getting so far are labor, environmental pressure, finding enough grass, global beef demand, feed prices, government, urban sprawl, public perception, input costs, no younger farmers, inflation, labor's getting bigger. Give you all another 15, 20 seconds on that one. But it looks like some of the more common responses on this question was land prices, labor, input costs, environmental pressure. And our last question before we open up to discussion is regarding succession planning. Share with us which category you would most relate to. And those categories are: I am a young producer who's entering the business or transitioning into an operation. I do not have a succession plan. I am in the process of finalizing a succession plan. I have a succession plan. I plan to exit the livestock industry and disperse, or this is not applicable to me. So it looks like right now I'm a young producer who is entering the business or transitioning into an operation is in the lead, which we definitely would find that interesting because at all of our meetings so far, all the listening sessions, that is definitely the category that has been the highest and unanimous across all the meetings. So definitely is a very common thing that a lot of folks are going through.
We're on the open comments now.
Can you go back to the graph, please?
Yeah.
Yep, so it looks like we kind of settled out with that. I'm a young producer who's entering the business as your number one category. The second one there, kind of in the middle, I am in the process of finalizing a transition plan as the second one, closely followed by I have a transition plan. So at this point, I'm going to invite Mr. Monty Lesh to come down, and he's going to kind of help MC our discussions tonight, and he's going to give you a little bit more of an overview of kind of our 5 areas of focus. And just do want to really appreciate y'all just kind of staying on some of the more consensus topics. We're not here to re-debate some of the more controversial topics in our issue, and we're trying to find that unity in the industry and come to our legislature with the 2 or 3 things that we can all get behind. So, Mr. Monty.
Thanks, Ian. So I really appreciate everybody being here tonight. And I'd also like to recognize Jim Steinweiser. He's the past president of the state association. And then at NCBA convention, he was elected to be the Region 5 vice president. So thanks for being here tonight, Jim. So it's great to see everybody. We've had good turnouts at a lot of these meetings. We're about halfway through, as Ian talked about. And my charge tonight is to talk to you a little bit about how we got to where we're at today. So about a year ago, LMA, which is the Livestock Market Association, that's the trade group for the sale barns. They've noticed over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of dispersions and not a lot of young people buying these cows. And ranches have been sold and taken out of production. So they started talking amongst themselves as far as what can they do to address that issue. And to make a long story short, last summer, there was a meeting in Billings, and they had a focus group and some ranchers were there and they talked about things. And then later that fall, I got a phone call and I was asked to come to Billings to participate in a working group. So Joe Goggins and Fred Wacker and Rusty Ellis and I and an attorney, we sat down one afternoon at Hayes and we wrote a lot of the resolution that went from Beartooth Stock Growers to the annual convention of Montana Stock Growers in Billings. And that information was passed around and it was discussed and cussed and changed a little bit, but it passed, and that's why we're here today. The Stock Growers Association works by the people that show up at the conventions and pass the resolutions and the policy. So with that, when we were in our discussion groups, we came up with about really 5 or 6 different things that we talked about. And some of them are the questions that you got tonight. And one of the main issues that came up in the groups that we've had so far and initially was the estate tax or the death tax. That tends to be a hot topic of discussion because that is set to sunset the current exemptions in 2025. So if that's not extended, worst case scenario could go back to what it was many years ago, which is like $1 million exemption. And I don't have to tell you that it doesn't take very much anymore. Based on your comments, the price of land is very high and it's extremely difficult to try to buy out family members or a neighbor if you're dealing with an estate tax issue. So that was one thing that we talked about. The other thing was improved government programs. What can we do collectively as individuals and producers to come together to work with potentially USDA or the federal government or the state government to improve some of the programs that are out there? And none of us are looking for a handout, but some of these programs could be enhanced. And one of them that came up for discussion was the LRP program. It's a good program, and I'm guessing there's people that are in here today that are using it currently or have read about it or thought about it. But part of the issue is that as a producer, if I contract cattle off of a video auction from Tim in July, I can't put an LRP on them until I take possession of them in October or November. So that creates a lot of market issues as far as being able to protect yourself from with a synthetic hedge, which is what an LRP is. So that's one thing that we've talked about and we might want to try to work on. The other thing is we need to simplify government lending programs for young producers. In my other life, I sell real estate, and I've dealt with quite a few young guys that are trying to buy ranches or farms. And when they go to the FSA office and apply, most of them would rather have root canals every day for a month rather than do that, because it ends up being just an onerous process that is very, very complicated, and you need somebody to really help you, lead you through that process. We think that it doesn't need to be that complicated, and if our goal is to keep young people or get young people on these ranches and farms, we need to simplify that process. So labor, that was a big issue that came up in the poll. We talked about that extensively in the previous listening groups and in the focus groups we had last summer and fall. How do we attract labor into this business? Most everybody's limiting factor today is labor. I mean, you can find a tractor if you need it, you can find a truck if you need it, but it is awful hard to find somebody to help you calve or farm or put up hay or do a lot of the things that need done. A lot of producers, and some of you in here, have probably gone to an H-2A where you're getting foreigners to come in and work. I know several people that have got 2 or 3 of them. And for the most part, it works pretty good. But that process is also burdensome and onerous, and you really need a third party to help you through that, to get through the paperwork with the government to get those people in. It'd be a lot easier if they just showed up at Juarez and walked across the river. I mean, they could get in a lot easier that way. But these programs need to be changed, and they're only going to be changed if we can exert some influence politically as a group that's unified. Another issue that came up was mentorship programs. I'm a firm believer that if I want to improve something or help somebody, I need to step forward and do that. You need to bring young people onto your place. You need to show them how to do things. You need to give them an opportunity. That can be easier said than done because we're all busy. So I guess with that, that's a short story of how we got to where we're at. And I think that by having these listening sessions, it really improves how people think about things, and they realize that you're not the only one that has an issue or a problem. And I think that if we work together, whether it's with the Stockbrokers Association or another organization, I would strongly encourage you to become a member, join something, and get involved. But I'd be glad to visit with you afterwards if you have any questions, but I'm going to turn it back to Ian because we're going to open it up for your comments and we want to hear what you have to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, Monty. Yeah, so we're going to kick things off kind of discussing the current tax climate and creating a favorable tax environment for ag and for business. So if you have thoughts on that, we sure would like to hear about it. And I will ask that when you take the mic, please say your name and where you're from, just for the folks online and just for the official record. So, but yeah, who would like to take their first go at it?
I know some of the people in here like to talk.
Okay. So nobody has thoughts on struggles with taxes?
First, I'd like to thank you guys for taking this effort to travel around the state and having these listening sessions. When I first heard about it, I was telling Monty I was suspicious, but after watching them and listening to people comment about them, I certainly see the value in it, and very constructive, and there is an opportunity for all of us to learn. So you talked a little bit about taxes. I know that we've worked within stock growers, and I know that there's a process in Helena with Governor on property tax restructuring, especially for new landowners or landowners that are being taxed at the ag land rate, are not using their property for agriculture, and talk about how to bring prices. And I think that that is an issue that I know you guys will be paying attention to, but I encourage you to take that one, work hard on that one, because I think that can really help us be more competitive when some of these places come up for sale, to at least be have an opportunity to at least be in the running for it. So we'll see how that looks. You mentioned, Monty, LRP modification and estate tax exception is coming up, and my involvement with MSGA, which is Montana Stockbrokers is an affiliate of, be sure that that is high on the radar, has been for quite a while, and their goal is just to eliminate it entirely. We're hoping to at least hold it to what it is now, but the real goal is to eliminate it or even raise it higher. So, and the LRP issue is a real issue nationwide. You should have the opportunity, especially if you have some down money on cattle, to be able to put the LRPs in place. It's a little trickier than it sounds. LRPs are already being manipulated in many ways, and the fear is too much manipulation. They no longer will be an effective tool that they appear to be at this point. So, again, thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. Anybody else want to grab the mic? Well, so we have folks online, so that's where we need the mic for, sir.
Yeah. So, Craig Steinweiser. Okay. Craig Steinmeiser, we do use the H2A program. How come they raise the wages every year? If all you have to do is pay somebody enough to come to work for you, why do they keep making the wages higher all the time? And they seem like they make it more complicated every year to bring these people in. Yeah.
Seth Buxell, Savage, Montana. So if you want to read it, the real answer is, so there was an ag labor working group, there's a House committee that put out a report on March 7th with, I think, 25 recommendations, 16 of them were bipartisan. And it kind of goes through the detail of that. But the basic reason the AWR rate increases every year is the methodology on it is doing it wrong, because they're taking the USDA Farm Labor Survey. And that survey takes a snapshot period in time. I think it's 4 weeks. Don't quote me on that. And says a guy earned this much wages in those 4 weeks. Divide that back, that's the average wage rate. Now, those 4 weeks that they're taking can have bonuses, extra pay, whatever in it. And they're saying that's an average. And then for the next year, they're setting the average as the minimum AWR rate. So every year you take an average and now you're calling that the minimum. So there, it has to step up every year, no matter what. So while I'm on the mic here, Representative Molinar from Michigan has introduced a bill that would freeze the AWR rate at 23 rate at 2023 level for 2 years. We should get on all of our legislators to support that bill, left, right, and center. And I can give you, it's, I think it's 7046, but I can give you an exact bill number. So that's the start on the H2A deal. I guess I have one thing on tax while I have this. So Montana did an exemption or an improvement on personal property tax that you're able to exempt the first $1 million. That's a bump up from 300,000 on your personal property tax before you have to start paying on it. With the value of equipment, personal property out there, I guess I'd push our state legislature to double that, maybe a couple million. And put something in there that exemption is followed on ag equipment instead of all equipment across the board. That'd really help the ag guys on what they have to pay on personal property tax on equipment.
Yeah, Jeff, my younger brother, if they're manipulating these LRP, why didn't you tell me how to do it?
I certainly don't want to cut anybody off, but I did want to kind of just, I was reviewing some of the notes we had from our other meetings. I'm just going to share with you some of the other stuff on tax that we had kind of heard comments on. But, you know, there's been conversation on, you know, is there a way to, do we prove our tax value for the land that we're producing to kind of differentiate ourselves from some of these recreational properties that are getting bought up by out-of-state money and getting taken out of ag production, to implement, you know, maybe a new tax classification, just to, you know, reward the folks that are still actually producing the land and the livestock and not just taking it for a hunting property. So that's definitely something that's come up. And then also, as far as the tax structure, is there some way that we can incentivize folks to leave it in ag production? You know, if they don't necessarily have, you know, a family heir or something coming back to the operation, because obviously there's a lot of folks that, you know, they see the dollar signs that they could get with that land, but is there a way that we can connect them with folks that are looking to land or, you know, looking for you know, a way to make their start to kind of help foster that next generation, which then bleeds over into our mentorship and to, you know, creating opportunities for the next generations. That really hits on a lot of these different topics. But if nobody else really has any topics on the tax structure, the tax environment, I think we can probably move to government programs, LRP, Pastor Ranger Forge, anything along those lines. If nobody has any final comments on taxes. No thoughts on the government programs? Nobody uses anything? Okay.
I'm Derek Pierce from Freud, Montana. The LIP program needs a major revamp. That's the livestock indemnity program for snowstorms and whatnot in the spring, but what they're valuing calves at and what their percentage of losses is really unrealistic for most of us that produce out in this part of the world. And I don't know, it just needs a major overhaul. It's built for the guy with 50 cows in the Midwest with one is it. And it's something that we truly don't want to use, but obviously with the last couple of years and snowstorms that we've incurred, a lot of us have had to use it, but it needs to be a lot better safety net than it currently is.
I think that's a new one for us, so appreciate your thoughts on that.
I'd just like to see a show of hands, people that have used the LRP program. Okay. Do you think there needs to be more education on LRP programs so that there's a basic understanding? There's a lot of rules.
There's been a lot of education listening sessions and a lot of trade shows, whatnot, especially on spoken words. It's the cost of use, like how it's run.
Okay.
If you could change it to make it so that
Yeah, that's come up almost at every meeting and in the original focus groups that when you sign a contract and put down money down, you should be able to, it's effectively hedging the cap. And you assume the ownership risk when you sign that contract. So we think you should be able to place that LRP contract on at that time. So the LRP contracts are subsidized. The producer's paying about a half to 2/3 of the premium, which is significantly cheaper than if you went to a commodity broker and bought options against the same type of price coverage. You don't have margin calls. You don't owe for the premium until the cattle are sold. So there's a lot of advantages to it that I would encourage you to look at it, because it's not when, or it's not if, but it's when. These prices won't last forever. And we all know what happened in 15 and 16. So I think I would encourage you to study it and look at it. It's not for everybody, just like hedging, but I think especially for young producers, because if you're going to go into a bank, it's a lot easier to get a loan today for a crop input loan than it is for it used to be for cattle, because of multi-peril and hail and all the other programs in place for revenue protection and that. LRP allows a young producer or any producer to minimize that risk or show a minimum loss or a minimum profitability on those cattle. So most banks are going to really want that, especially at these higher levels. So
we'll make a comment just from one of our other listening sessions. We had a younger producer that he made the comment that you know, he had been kind of leasing some ground and, you know, running a few head with his family, kind of on just a family deal. And, you know, so he had been on the books for for over 10 years at this point, even though he's not even out of his 20s. And because of that fact, he is disqualified now from a lot of the FSA type loan programs for the young and beginning farmer. And so he thought that was, maybe might be one area to get looked at, just because he really wasn't doing it as a full-time deal, or even really as just kind of it's just a side thing in addition to helping his family, just trying to get a little bit of that ownership on the operation. And now there's one more tool out of his tool belt that he can't really utilize, even though he's still, by every industry standards, a young producer. I think the average younger beginning producer, the last census said was 47 years old was the average age. And so anyway, that was just one comment that I thought stuck out to me.
We're live streaming it, Tim, so you
Oh, I
gotta
see.
use your microphone.
I think the LRP is a great tool for the cow calf. I really do. In the stocker side of things and the feedlot side of things, where we rely on a lot of our side of it, or our business, the profits, the margin is so narrow. When we buy cattle, we buy them to bet on the come, because the day we buy them, we're lucky to lock in a $25 head profit. Very lucky. I mean, usually they're $25 head losers, but I think in the big picture, when we do that, the LRP on a set of cattle like that, stockers, excuse me, we have to try to work our way back to get that money back, because we don't have enough profit or enough margin in there to make money. But as far as the cow calf side of it, I think it's a wonderful tool.
Does anybody else have comments or thoughts they would like to share?
I was also taught old school, so we just used the board.
Well, if nobody has, I guess, further thoughts on government programs or what can be tweaked or made better about them, we can maybe.
Why is there no program for that?
My question is why is there no program for just say death loss and say like varmint or coyote control? Because everybody loses calves to varmints.
Well, I am not our policy person. I do believe there are some programs, and Ellie, correct me if you know more, at least for coyotes, and as far as helping eliminate some coyotes. I don't know about compensation, but yeah. Well, I will definitely take that comment down, but I don't have any further knowledge on that unless one of our board of directors do. Sure, yeah. Definitely I think our first comment of these listening sessions about livestock predation, so thank you for sharing. That's why we're here. We don't come with any preconceived notions of what works, what doesn't work. We're just trying to get feedback so that we know where we need to direct our time and effort, so.
I know on the board, Keith Dennison, Sidney. On the board, we're working on this predation thing, but the people with the wolves and the bears, they've got the voice. So the thing we gotta do is the people that deal with the coyotes and stuff over here need to get as big a voice as those guys do to get where they are today. So they're the squeaky wheel right now.
I guess I'll hand the mic back to you, but I would ask you what, if, you know, we were able to get a program like that in place, what in your mind, what would work the best, or how would you see that?
It's just, you know, like he says, yeah, the bears and the wolves are protected and the coyotes aren't, but we try to patrol them. I mean, if I see it, I try to kill them. We obviously can't shoot the bears and the wolves, but I mean, no matter what, they're still outnumbered and they're not worth anything. So nobody's killing them and now they're getting overpopulated. You know, and so guess what they're killing? The newborn calf. I mean, 2 mornings ago, I lost it. I mean, they ate the calf dead. I mean, it was completely gone overnight. So I'm out $1,800, $2,000.
Corey Foss is my name. I'm not entirely sure that predator control is high enough on the list to spend a bunch of time on, but, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm fairly familiar with this, and I think it's a county by county thing in our state. I know that our county has a fairly good sized predator control fund controlled by our commissioners that is not used, or used very little. I know that, for also as an example, Macomb County has a full-time trapper hired year round. So it could be, I think it's probably more on a local level issue. If it is a concern, I challenge you to take it to our commissioners, because I know that there's a substantial amount of money there that could be used for flying or whatever. Also with the flying, I think in our state is you have landowner permission. So it's sort of got to be a team deal, because if I know some landowners won't let it happen and others will, and I think that keeps the guys that hire the fly from really doing a good job. But I'm pretty sure that it's a local based deal.
You mentioned, Jim Steinweiser, you mentioned the prices for cow pelts is so low, and I know that Carter County is talking about having what's the word I'm looking for? Bounty going through their county. There's some questions about the legalities of that. I dug into it a little bit. It looks like it should be a doable thing, but put a bounty on those coyotes, you get some people out for fun hunting them again like they used to. So there's one thing that could be useful.
Also on that, it needs to be, if one county does it and the next county doesn't, I'm gonna haul my coyotes to Macomb and get my bounty for them. I mean, you could, I also know that Canada has a bounty, but there's a certain quota, and they filled. I know in the district just north of Plentywood that the quota was filled by noon on the first day. So it kind of needs, it's a team effort there. If one county does it, the next county does it, else they're gonna have to set a quota on it, else all of a sudden there's gonna be a lot of coyotes being sold in that county.
Anybody else have thoughts or comments on government programs? Okay, well, I guess we can kind of move into the labor conversation. You know, a lot of the conversations up to this point have been centered around how do we develop a more reliable domestic labor supply, as well as, you know, how do we make H-2A and other foreign labor programs more accessible, more user-friendly. So if you have thoughts on those or something completely different, we sure would like to hear about them.
Hey Seth, if you would explain to everybody what it takes to get an H2A. You do a lot of it, so just kind of explain the step-by-step and all the paperwork you gotta go through to get somebody and what it all costs.
That's like being put on the spot, right?
Well, that part's not the problem, you just don't want the truth. H2A labor, so the process that I use an agent. So I don't do any of the paperwork myself, but from my perspective, there's 2 or 3 major hurdles that are a problem. One, the Department of Labor, which is where you have to go to first, has transitioned over, and that is all online through a system they call FLAG, F-L-A-G. And that's actually gotten relatively decent. But then you have to go through Department of Homeland Security to get approval for whatever applicants you want to come in. The Department of Homeland Security is still a paper-based system. So you transition from electronic to paper, get approval for that, and back to electronic to do your consulate work. So the answer is you cannot apply for your H2A positions greater than 75 days before you want them to get there. But part of the problem with the system is based on timeframes and when the Department of Labor is going to approve and the Department of Homeland Security is going to approve, it's going to take 70 days to get the work done. So you got a 75-day window, and the government is already saying it's going to take 70 days. So very seldom do you actually get that done. I'm going to bring up one major complaint or grief that I have that had just come out this year. Well, 2 actually. But the first is USCIS did a rate fee increase this year, which I don't have a problem with the increase in fees for doing the visas for the workers. I have a problem with the fact that they now tacked on an asylum fee for every application that I put in. And that asylum fee is going just towards what it sounds like support of the asylum program for illegals coming across the border. So I'm a small operator, less than 25 employees, but for every application I put in, I now have to pay a $300 asylum fee for that. If you're a large employer, greater than 25 employees, that asylum fee is going to be $600. Second, there was a Department of Labor rule came out that if your H2A employees, your job description shows that your H2A employees are going to fall somewhere outside the standard 6 categories for what is called the AWR rate. And for everybody in here, the vast majority of you in here, that those 6 categories, you're a farm equipment operator or a picker or other ag employer. But if your job description includes, say, for example, truck driving, heavy truck driving, any ranch in here not have a semi? Okay, point proven. So now instead of using the department, instead of using
What I think you're getting at, because I think we've heard this comment at several others, is that when they have to drive truck, they're getting charged at a higher labor rate that is substantially higher than what the regular ag rate would be. And that affects your bottom line as an operator and an employer.
Well, you can say it on average, costs $3,000.
And we're hearing from our crowd that on average, it costs $3,000 for a H2A employee to just step foot on their doorstep before they ever start working. Some other comments that we've had at other meetings, specifically related to some of our foreign labor work programs, is there's challenges with the amount of time that they can stay in country. You know, with especially with the livestock operations, that's a year-round. Of course, you have your busier times a year, but you know they need help that can stay year round and be consistent. And so that's definitely been a topic of conversation. Because they get these folks trained up the way they need them, they're kind of starting to figure things out, and then it's time for them to go home and leave again. And then they don't know if they will get those same folks back, and they many times have to start that process all over with the next batch of workers, training them how they want things done. We also had folks kind of comment on, just on a broader scope of how do we keep our rural communities vibrant. A lot of times with these foreign labor programs, they aren't necessarily interested in bringing their families over. They want to make some money, make some wages, and then return to their home country. And so how do we incentivize folks to, settle down with families, invest it back into the community, keep the schools open, work with the local businesses, the restaurants, some of the rural Main Street businesses. That's been something that was discussed. Do we have any other comments from the audience on, from a young producer standpoint of how do we get more folks in that younger demographic back into the operations, back on the land, or how do we incentivize folks that want to work in this industry when it's not always the easiest or the most lustrous, when it's -50 below and blowing snow, but they can go into town at McDonald's and get a wage.
Ian, this is Monty again. So one of the things that we talked about, and it's in the title, it's profitability. And really, if you want to entice people into an industry or business, it has to be profitable. So I think a lot of the challenge that we have today is trying to smooth out the profitability or the lack thereof at times, so that young people or middle-aged people or whoever wants to get into this business has some stability to profitability. And, it's great to try to do it all on your own, yourself, all the time, but it doesn't always work the best. And this is one of the reasons why I got involved with this in the beginning is without profit, there's no business. And if there's no business, you need to go find a job at McDonald's. So I guess I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on profitability and what we can do about that to help young people get into the business and stay in the business. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to get into it or want to stay in it, but they don't see a future in it because of the uncertainty of profitability.
I think one of the challenges we have is figuring out the profitability side. Because I think with the profitability comes, my name is Terry Moe. The profitability side comes back to us from the question that you commented earlier on, and I'm throwing this at you, but you said the price of cattle aren't going to stay where they're at today. When indeed it actually needs to probably stay there, or if not go up more based on the price of the equipment that it costs to operate, and or whether you're farming or ranching. Because with the, and I don't have the answers by no means, it's more of a comment, but every factory worker out there, whether they work at John Deere, Case Implement, you name the product, they're getting raises each and every year, part of a union structure, correct? And then on the farming and ranching side of it, we don't have that government backing and or means to sustain that profitability that you're talking about. So we have that influx, right? Whether corn's at $3.99, I still can't understand why combines are up 60%, because that usually is a driving indicator in the Midwest in regards to farm machinery. We go off of corn prices out of Iowa. And then now here in the Valley, what happened last year or 2 years ago with the sugar beets leaving, a lot of people were happy about that, but yet on the other side of it, what we've seen is that the market isn't going to be the same and or support them based on growing corn and or beans at the level that they could grow sugar beets. So I think when you know, the standards that you brought up earlier about the Michigan guy, I wrote that down. I think it has to come back to your senators and coming up with some kind of program that helps you, because we can all talk about the packers, we can talk about the negative side of that. But the reality side is, why is the cattle market gonna go back down? I mean, we have just as many people in the world, we have more people eating meat now. But yet here we are talking about it going down, and I'm not throwing that at you, but I'm in the auction industry and every day I see the prices of equipment go up. So, I mean, we just have to meet that demand. I mean, bull sales are some of the all-time high right now. Cow calf are sometimes the high right now, right today. But then we're talking about in 2 years, is the calf market gonna go back to $800? I think that's the real, how do you answer that? I don't have an answer, it's just more of a comment.
That's a great comment, because therein lies the dilemma.
Corey Fox again. I think Terry's spot on, but I also think the majority of the general public that's not involved in agriculture has no idea where their food comes from. We got people in our own state and our own town that don't know where their food comes from. And I don't know if we can do, if there's something we can do a better job of educating, I mean, the next generation. I think it's a huge issue. And it affects the way they think, and it affects the way they vote.
Anybody else? Well, I hope calves don't go to $800 again.
I think if everybody's kind of said their piece on that, we can kind of just combine the last two areas of focus, the reducing barriers to entry and mentorship aspect of things. If you have any comments or thoughts on that, we sure would like to hear about them.
I have one comment, Seth Buxel, I'll keep this shorter. Over a cup of coffee with a banker, I was informed of the ACRE Act, ACRE Act. Essentially, if I understand it correctly, Farm Credit Services does not have to pay income, doesn't have to pay tax on income made off of real estate loans. So the bankers lobby is introducing this ACRE Act to try to set it up so the banks are the same way, so they don't have to pay income, taxable income on interest income from real estate loans made in small communities. If I read this right, I understand, which I'm a little bit uninformed, but that would make a bank competitive with Farm Credit Services. So as I read this line here, expand opportunities to secure capital for young ag people, that'd give them a little bit of competition in that area. So.
Once again, Terry Moe, just a question, I guess, back to the group in regards to the labor force, when you said from the mentoring standpoint of the H2A laborers in enticing families to come over. Is there a program out there that's working on that, or are they just working more on the, and I've never employed a South African or anyone else from another country, but is it, I mean, from my understanding, it's more of bringing them over here to experience more of an experience versus a lifestyle change where it entices them to bring a family. Because I think that's really important. If you bring a young couple over, then you have some, you have some, I don't know what the word is, but you bring it in no different than if she works at a bank or could go work at a bank, we could say restaurants, wherever they need to work at. But then you're bringing a family over versus just one individual that his whole mindset is to send money home. Is there something out there that does that? Or is that something that needs to be brought up to maybe entice and or change?
I'm definitely, will be the first thing that I'm not the most knowledgeable on that topic. So to my knowledge, there's not a program specifically, but I know we have had some comments at some of our other listening sessions that folks have, when they found good help through that H2A program, they've kind of had conversations with them about, is this, would you be interested in trying to make this more of a permanent deal and then trying to help them through getting a green card or some of those more permanent, visa type programs where they could come over here for longer stints at a time. So I would say that's probably, from what we've heard in the listening sessions, it's been more on a one-on-one individual basis, not from a wide scope program basis.
So an H2A, Seth Buxel again, so an H2A worker can bring her spouse and or children over on an H4 visa, which is good. I have guys that do that. The problem with the H4 visa, as I see it, is that spouse that comes on an H4 visa cannot be employed in the United States. So even though they come here, they can't help solve our problem once they get here. So that's a good point. Maybe we could get a senator to put a bill in there that lets H4 visa holders work.
Does anybody have thoughts or comments? What strategies have y'all used to, retain your employees, or if you have outside help, or even bring back family help? I mean, I know there's a lot of really good astute operators in this room. So, what's working for y'all, or if you haven't found something that's worked, what's the barriers for you?
I'm sorry, I just can't help myself. A key perk to keeping an ag employee is typically providing housing. I assume everybody here kind of agrees on that. So how about some tax incentives for housing provided to ag employees?
It's a new one, so I'm glad we're getting new feedback. We're holding all these different meetings around the state, because getting all these folks in rooms and having these conversations is how we get these good new ideas. I'll just share some of the thoughts and comments we've had from some of our other meetings. One of our meetings, there was an individual that he commented that they switched from a command-based management system to a market-based management system on their operation, trying to incentivize folks that, if they would take on more responsibility, more of a role within the operation, that they would get rewarded for that higher level management, and hopefully encourage and mentor those skills in them so that they could take on more responsibility, be more efficient, and in turn be able to make the operation more profitable as their labor got more valuable. We've had several folks comment about their use of interns. I know there's a lot of college programs out there that require their students to have an internship, and while it's maybe not always the easiest path for an operator, I'm sure there's many that can attest that in your younger years that you had a mentor, somebody who opened up a door for you and allowed you to kind of learn from them, and it made an impact on your career. So that's definitely a comment that we've had at several of our listening sessions. Another comment we had from somebody who had worked for other operations for around 2.5 decades. His comment was that without having equity or in the land base or within the operation, that it was hard for him as a hired man to see why he should keep working for somebody else. But he said what made the difference for him was how he was treated, and some of the, I guess, maybe more non-tangible benefits that he received, whether that was paid time off or good health insurance for his family or housing we heard earlier. Some of those things that wasn't necessarily just about the pay, but how he was treated, that made all the difference for him. Does anybody have any further thoughts on mentorship opportunities or reducing barriers to entry for the next generation? Okay, I guess here at the end, we'll kind of open it to other thoughts that aren't really covered in these 5 areas of focus. And we'll just remind you to please kind of maybe steer clear of some of those more controversial topics. We're here to try to build consensus, and we're not going to solve the world's problems overnight. But if there's any thoughts on other areas that we haven't discussed tonight, we sure would love to talk about them.
Everything's going great, I guess. So.
While you're thinking on that kind of last topic, for those of you that want to continue to participate in our survey, you can go ahead and get your phones back out. We'll have a few more questions to kind of wrap things up and get that geared up and ready to go again. Yeah, so definitely, I don't want to cut anybody off if you have other thoughts that you would like to contribute tonight, but we will go ahead and roll some of these final questions out for the survey. So this question is, out of the 5 areas of focus presented, please rank the most important to the least, 1 being the most important. And if anybody needs help getting that pulled back up, please let us know. We'll be happy to help navigate you back. So looking right now, and first, minimizing barriers to entry for young or beginning producers. Favorable tax climate is in second. Improved government programs is in third. Labor challenges in fourth. Does everybody have time to give the response there? So then our next question is, what topic from tonight's discussion did you find most valuable? I will give one final reminder for those of you that came in late. We are doing a vaccine cooler raffle, so if you didn't have a chance to sign in, we can get you signed in right now and enter to win before we draw for the end of the evening. So far our responses to the question, what topic from tonight's discussion did you find most valuable? We have LRP, labor, taxes, LRP, labor discussions and solutions, government programs, labor issues, you all 10, 15 more seconds to submit any more feedback on that question. Okay, going once, going twice. Profitability for cow-calf producer. General discussion was most valuable, labor number 1. And then our final question for the evening, how can MSGA and the Producer Profitability Initiative serve you and your family's operation? Do want to take a moment to thank Sidney Livestock and the Larsons for helping with the meeting tonight and allowing us to use their facilities. We sure appreciate y'all, and yeah, absolutely. The Livestock Marketing Association, LFA, and the Association of Auction Markets for Montana, they've been great partners in this initiative, and we couldn't do it without them. And just also wanted to thank Western Ranch Supply and Bo Ringer Ingelheimer for helping with the donation of the vaccine coolers that we're raffling off at all these listening sessions.
Keith Dennison. I want to introduce the local affiliate people that are here. Dustin Horsberg is president. Marley is secretary treasurer. Dustin Simblick was here. He's on the board. So they're running the local things. So get a hold of them if you want to become a member or whatever. And then Fosses and Wolds are having their bull sale tomorrow. So come and support them. Thank you guys for showing up.
Yep, absolutely. We appreciate everybody's time. I know it's a busy time of year, so we really appreciate it. We think this is going to turn into something big. We feel like there's momentum growing around the state, and I know even California, Alabama, there's a lot of other states that are hosting meetings similar to ours. So we're pretty hopeful that we'll be able to get some real change, some real moving the needle for Montana's producers in the upcoming legislature. And just wanted to read off the last few thoughts from the last question. So some of those responses to how MSGA and the Producer Profitability Initiative can serve you and your family. Education, be our voices on important topics, keep fighting for us in Helena and DC, work to increase profitability of raising cattle, actively working to support our industry, being the consolidated voice for producers and addressing all of these issues, attracting young producers to be involved in the industry, working with state and federal legislatures to support advance ag need. So I think we're about ready to draw for the schooler unless we have any final thoughts.
The winner is Amanda McMillan. Congratulations. I'd just like to say I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. And we're in a great industry. We live in a great country. So if we work together, we can achieve great things. So stay involved, stay active, and thanks again for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to make sure to remind y'all, we have 2 more meetings over in Eastern Montana next week. We're going to be in Glendive Wednesday, April 10th, which is next Wednesday, and then Miles City Thursday, April 11th. So if you have time and would like to come see a different group of producers and a different conversation, we sure would invite you out again. We do have a form on our website, mtbeef.org/profitability, that if you're driving home tonight and you have thoughts or you didn't feel comfortable getting up in the crowd and sharing, there is a way you can go on our website and submit feedback online. We'll be keeping all the recordings for the meeting on the website, so you can go back and rewatch or see what other meetings said, their thoughts. That's where all the latest news will be as far as we advance in this producer profitability initiative. We'll be continuing to follow up with you as we go through, trying to make sure to keep in the loop. Like I said, we're about halfway through, so still got quite a few more meetings coming down the pipeline in the next few weeks, and we're really excited and appreciate y'all coming out tonight, taking some of your hard-earned time for this discussion tonight, and have safe travels home.